Okay, welcome to the deep dive. We've been really digging into a stack of researches that get right to the heart of what drives success, how we interact, and, well, honestly, what makes us tick.
That's right. It's a really fascinating look at things like mindset, the dynamics of influence, which, you could broadly call sales, and the often unseen forces behind, well, consistent achievement.
Yeah, and our mission here is to pull out the absolute most impactful nuggets from these researches for you. The kind of insights that might just, shift how you look at things a bit.
Whether you're aiming for a new role, trying to get an idea across, or just figuring out your own path.
Exactly. So get ready, because some of this really flips conventional wisdom right on its head.
It really does.
All right, let's jump in. The first big idea from the research is, the one that feels almost, well, counterintuitive right away, is this concept that success isn't fundamentally about the era you're in, or like the external stuff happening.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's much more about your mindset and your approach within that specific time. The research is, they use some interesting historical context, like comparing different decades in Kuwait, for instance.
And the surprising thing was, even during these huge economic booms, not everyone struck it rich, right?
Precisely. If it were purely about timing or the market conditions, you'd expect, well, much more similar outcomes across the board. But you just didn't see that.
So the difference wasn't the opportunity outside.
No, it was the internal game, how people thought, how they perceived possibilities, and crucially, whether they actually acted on them.
So it's less about the cards you're dealt and more about how you play the hand.
That's a good way to put it, yeah. And this leads straight into that key distinction the research has made between a fixed mindset and a growth mindset.
Okay, fixed mindset being like, my talents are what they are, I can't change them.
Right, I'm just not a numbers person, or selling isn't for me, end of story. Versus that growth mindset, the belief that you actually can develop your abilities, your smarts through, effort, learning, sticking with it.
That's a huge difference. But where does that growth mindset actually come from? Is it just something you're born with?
The researchers were really clear on this.
Yeah.
It's overwhelmingly cultivated, nurtured, and the single biggest factor, it's your mental input.
Mental input, you mean like what you feed your brain?
Exactly that. Who you listen to, the chats you have, who you hang out with, the videos you watch, books you read, even, and this is key, the stuff you deliberately tune out.
Ah, okay. So if you're constantly surrounded by like negativity, people saying, oh, that'll never work, or just play it safe.
You're actively building up that fixed mindset. It sort of reinforces the walls around what you think is possible. So consciously filtering that, curating what you consume, even cleaning up your social media feed, that's actually critical for developing a growth perspective.
Like weeding a garden, basically. You got to protect what you want to grow.
Perfect analogy.
Yeah. Okay. That makes a lot of sense. But just having the right mindset, that doesn't mean the path itself is going to be easy, does it? The researchers didn't exactly sugarcoat things.
No, they certainly didn't. And here's something that might feel a bit uncomfortable for some people. Chasing something really big, something extraordinary, it can actually be pretty lonely, especially at the start.
Lonely? How so?
Well, the researchers pointed out that the people who maybe weren't willing to make the same sacrifices or perhaps even doubted you or just couldn't keep up with that intense focus, they often tend to reappear after you've already achieved something significant.
Ah, so there's this period of intense focus, maybe even isolation.
Exactly, where you're just pouring everything into it. And this ties into another challenging idea that comes up a lot, the whole notion of perfect work-life balance.
Right, the 50-50 dream.
Yeah. The researchers argue that if you're genuinely aiming for something truly exceptional like legendary level achievement, that perfect idealized balance might actually be a myth.
Okay, that's bold. Why is that?
Well, because reaching that kind of peak demands a disproportionate amount of your focus, your time, your energy. And those are finite resources, right? You can't just neatly divide them equally among everything you want, career, hobbies, family, rest, and realistically expect to hit the absolute top in one specific, highly competitive area all at the same time.
So it's not about having it all perfectly balanced all at once.
Probably not if the goal is truly extraordinary. It demands ruthless prioritization, really identifying what you absolutely cannot afford not to do if you're serious about hitting that specific ambitious target.
And accepting that other things, even important things, might have to take a back seat for a while. That's the trade-off.
It often is. It's a tough reality, but the research has suggested it's frequently part of that journey.
Okay, all right. Let's pivot a bit now to a core skill set that honestly seems to run through everything. Sales, but defined really broadly, right?
Yes, exactly. And when we say sales, we're not just talking about, selling widgets. It's selling an idea to your boss, convincing your partner about a vacation spot, getting your kids to try broccoli.
Ha, right. Or selling yourself in an interview.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So what did the researchers identify as the secret sauce here?
Yeah, what's the key?
It really boils down to one idea that sounds simple, but is incredibly powerful in practice.
Yeah.
You have to put yourself truly and completely in the other person's shoes.
Okay. I mean, that sounds like standard advice, empathy, and all that. How is this different?
Well, because most people, when they're trying to persuade someone, are still fundamentally focused on their goal. I need this commission, I deserve this raise, I want to go here on vacation because I like it.
Stuck in their own heads.
Completely.
Mm.
But the other person, your customer, your manager, your friend, they aren't thinking about your needs. They're asking, maybe subconsciously, what's in it for me?
Yeah.
IYFM, right?
Right.
The researchers had this great example. A manager choosing between two people for a promotion. One is maybe 90% technically skilled. The other is, say, 80% skilled.
Instinct says you go with the 90% person, higher skill.
And you might be wrong. The researchers found that if that 80% skilled person is significantly easier to manage, more collaborative, less drama, needs less hand-holding, the manager very often chooses them.
Because the 80% person makes the manager's life easier, less hassle.
Bingo. They might happily trade that 10% extra technical skill for, like, 30% less headache.
Right.
So it's not always just about raw ability. It's about how you and your skills impact their world, their problems, their ease of operation.
Wow. Okay, that really reframes things. It suggests that sometimes just being technically right isn't the smartest play.
Especially when you're dealing with superiors, or really anyone you need to influence. It takes real self-awareness, doesn't it? Knowing when to push a point, when to phrase it carefully, or maybe even when the smartest move is just to stay quiet and let someone save face to preserve the relationship long term.
Don't back them into a corner.
Exactly. And that deep understanding of the other person, it flows right into another huge insight. People buy people.
This is so true.
It's critical. It means the little things about you, the person doing the influencing, they matter a lot. People aren't just evaluating your idea or your product in isolation. They're evaluating you. They're buying into you.
The researchers even had that surprising example about manicured nails.
Seems trivial.
It does sound trivial, right? But the underlying point was that if someone pays attention to small personal details, whether it's grooming, clean shoes, being organized, it sends a subtle signal. It suggests they probably bring that same level of care and attention to detail to their work, to the quality of what they're offering. Okay, yeah, I can actually see that logic. In a world where first impressions happen so fast, often visually,
They're huge. You often form an opinion about the person before you can possibly know the deep quality of their product or idea. Your presentation is like the first advertising.
and this connects to that changing ratio the researchers mentioned, right? Success today leaning more heavily on communication, emotional intelligence, something like 80% that, and only 20% pure technical skill.
Yeah, that ratio wasn't meant to be exact science, but more to emphasize a point. Technical brilliance alone often isn't enough anymore. You could be the most amazing coder, but if you can't explain your work, collaborate, or understand what the user or the business actually needs, that brilliance gets stuck.
You can't leverage it without connecting with people.
Precisely. You are the first advertisement for whatever you offer, including yourself. Think about personalities who build huge followings, like Salt Bae, or maybe even someone like Barack Obama.
Oh, interesting examples. People aren't just going for the perfectly salted steak or the policy details alone.
Right. They're buying into the whole package, the performance, the personality, the connection, the brand. It's that old saying, the eye eats before the mouth. How it's presented matters immensely.
So bringing it back to that core sales idea, always frame it around the other person's benefit.
Always. Want your friends to agree to your vacation idea? Don't just list why you love it. Figure out what they want. Adventure. Sell the hiking and ziplining. Relaxation. Talk about the quiet beaches.
Not the obscure museum you want to visit.
Exactly. Or asking for a raise. Don't just list your accomplishments. Frame them by how they directly helped your boss, the team, the company's bottom line. My work on Project X did Y, which solved Z problem for us and helped us hit our targets. Make it their win, facilitated by you.
That shift in perspective is really key. Okay, let's talk confidence. It feels so internal, like you've either got it or you don't.
It really feels that way, doesn't it? But the research has suggested a different take. It's less about feeling fearless inside because, let's be honest, nerves are normal, especially when the stakes are high.
Yeah, nobody's immune.
Right. It's much more about managing your outward behavior, your demeanor. It's about acting confidently, even if you're feeling shaky inside.
Like the definition of courage. Not the absence of fear, but doing it anyway.
Exactly that. And here's the interesting part the research has highlighted. Those outward actions, that confident behavior, can actually create a feedback loop and start to change how you feel internally over time.
Okay, so practically speaking, what does acting confident look like? Any specific tactics?
Yeah, the research has mentioned some simple but effective things, like paying attention to how you dress. Sometimes dressing up literally makes you stand taller, carry yourself differently, practicing what you need to say so you feel prepared. And interestingly, deliberately speaking, a bit slower.
Slower. That seems weird. If you're nervous, you'd think you'd rush.
You would think so. But rushing often signals nervousness or lack of control. Speaking deliberately, taking pauses, projects composure and authority. It gives you time to think, too. And when you project that calm confidence externally,
Other people pick up on it, they treat you as confident, and maybe you start to internalize it more, sort of a constructive fake it till you make it.
precisely. It's not about being fake. It's about using behavior to influence perception, both theirs and your own.
Okay, so what about those moments where you really are put on the spot? Someone hits you with a tough question, maybe a critical one. How do you handle that without getting defensive?
Ah, yes. The researchers were very clear. The absolute first rule is don't get defensive.
Yeah.
That's the gut reaction, right? But it almost never helps.
So what's the alternative? Breathe deep.
Definitely take a breath. Pause. Just a second or two feels way longer to you than it does to them. Then acknowledge their point neutrally. Something simple like, okay, I can see why you'd ask that, or that's a fair point to raise.
Buys you a moment to think.
Absolutely. And then this is the crucial strategic move. Ask clarifying questions.
Ask questions when I'm the one being questioned. Feels counterintuitive.
It might feel that way initially, but think about what it does. One, yes, it buys you more thinking time. Two, and this is huge, it helps you understand the real issue behind their question. Are they worried about the cost, the timeline? Did they misunderstand something? You need to diagnose the actual concern before you can address it.
Ah, so you're not just reacting to the surface question, you're digging for the root cause.
Exactly. And third, it subtly shifts the dynamic. You're no longer just reacting defensively. You're guiding the conversation, gathering info, controlling the pace. It's actually a very controlled, strategic response.
And using questions strategically like that seems to be the core of modern selling, doesn't it? The research has said the old pushy salesperson stereotype is basically obsolete.
Totally obsolete. That fast-talking, high-pressure approach just doesn't work anymore.
Yeah.
Especially not for anything complex or relationship-based.
People see right through it.
Right. Today's really effective salespeople, they listen way more than they talk, and they ask incredibly insightful questions. Their goal isn't to hammer you into submission.
It's more like they're helping you convince yourself.
Precisely. They provide information, they gently address concerns, they guide you through your own thinking process so that you feel like you made the decision freely.
Which leads to less buyer's remorse later, I bet.
Much less. Now, they might use subtle techniques, sure, like how they frame choices. Instead of asking, do you want one, they might ask.
Would you prefer the red one or the blue one? Already assuming a yes.
Exactly. Or, are you leaning towards the standard package, or does the premium option with the extra support seem like a better fit for your specific needs? It's guiding, gently, towards a positive outcome, but always framed around what's best for you.
That whole approach feels much more ethical, too. And the research has really stressed that being ethical isn't just like the nice thing to do in sales. It's the smartest, most practical strategy for the long run.
It absolutely is. Think about it. You might win one deal by being shady or cutting corners, but you risk torching your reputation. And the research is called reputation your single most valuable asset once it's gone. Good luck getting it back. Your word has to be gold.
Totally. And the research has highlighted this incredibly counterintuitive but powerful ethical move. Sometimes the best strategic play is to actually tell a potential customer, you know what, based on your specific needs right now, my competitor's product might actually be a better fit for you.
Wow. That takes some serious guts.
Yeah.
And confidence in your own value long term. Does that actually pay off?
Surprisingly often, yes. It completely floors the customer with honesty. It builds massive, immediate trust. Even if they go with the competitor this time, who do you think they'll come back to next time? Or who will they rave about to their friends?
You, the person who is honest even when it costs them a sale. You become a trusted advisor, not just a salesperson.
Exactly. You shift the whole relationship. It's about avoiding that short-term, quota-driven pressure that leads to bad fits, returns, complaints. It's about building relationships. The research has even used this interesting phrase, raising a customer.
Raising a customer, like nurturing them. Yeah, like cultivating them over time, which connects perfectly to another analogy they used, the farmer versus the hunter.
Right. The hunter goes for the quick kill, the immediate win.
Gets the score, moves on. Short-term thinking.
Yeah.
But the farmer, they think long-term. They prepare the soil, plant seeds, water, weed, cultivate. They wait patiently for the harvest. Sustainable success in sales or anything else is built like that farm. Consistent, patient effort over the long haul.
And that kind of consistent effort means you will face setbacks. Which brings us to handling failure, and that big one, the fear of hearing no.
This is such a huge barrier for so many people. It can be paralyzing. But the research has pointed out something really critical. The fear of failure is often self-fulfilling. If you're so afraid of failing that you don't even try.
You've already failed. Guaranteed 100% failure rate.
Right. Whereas trying, even if you stumble, at least gives you a chance. And the researchers were clear. You should expect no's. You should expect setbacks, especially when you're pushing boundaries or trying something new. Failure isn't the opposite of success. It's often just part of the process.
So success isn't about never failing or only getting yeses.
Not at all. It's often about how many no's you can take, learn from, and keep moving forward anyway. You fundamentally have to change your relationship with hearing no.
Don't take it personally. Easier said than done sometimes.
For sure. But try to see it as data, information. A step closer to finding the right fit, the right approach, the eventual yes, reframe it maybe. Every no earns you something: experience, resilience, clarity. And the researchers also noted that most objections, most reasons for no, aren't completely random. They usually boil down to a few common themes.
Like price, quality, timing, need.
Exactly. Which means you can actually prepare for them, learn how to handle them effectively. Like that classic stall, I need to think about it. The default is just to say, okay, let me know.
But the researchers suggested a more proactive approach.
Yeah. First, respect it, totally understand. Taking time to think it over makes sense. Then, maybe ensure they have all the info they need. And then, gently probe to understand the real hesitation. Just so I can provide the best info while you're thinking. Is it mainly the features you're weighing up, or is it more about fitting it into the budget right now?
Trying to uncover the actual sticking point, not just letting it hang there.
Exactly. You need to address the real obstacle.
Okay, this has all been super practical. Let's maybe go a layer deeper now to something more fundamental. Finding your why, that core motivation.
Right. And the really interesting insight here from the researchers was that your why isn't necessarily this fixed thing you discover once and it's set in stone.
It can change, evolve over time.
Yeah, and maybe even more critically, sometimes the why you think you're pursuing isn't actually yours at all.
A borrowed why? What does that mean?
Like maybe it's a dream your parents instilled in you, or something society tells you should represent success, or a status symbol you feel you ought to want. But chasing someone else's why, a borrowed why, it often lacks that deep, sustainable internal drive. It can feel hollow eventually.
So if you're feeling a bit lost, unsure of your real why, how do you start to uncover it?
The research has suggested a really powerful technique. Flip the question around. If you don't know what you do want, start by asking, what do I absolutely not want?
What outcomes do I desperately want to avoid?
Exactly. I absolutely do not want to end up feeling like I can't provide for my family, or I don't want to be stuck in a soul-crushing job for the next 30 years, or I don't want to look back with huge regrets. Defining those negatives you want to steer clear of can actually illuminate the positive things you truly value and desire.
That's a really interesting angle, and finding that kind of clarity, it sounds like it requires cutting through a lot of noise.
Absolutely essential in today's world. Reducing distractions, deliberately making time for quiet reflection, just thinking. It's crucial for separating your own authentic voice from all the external pressures, expectations, and endless comparisons.
Oh man, the comparison trap, social media highlight reels.
They're brutal, a major source of dissatisfaction and distraction. Constantly seeing curated versions of everyone else's success just pulls you away from figuring out and following your own unique path, your own why.
And it can lead to that paralysis by analysis thing too, right?
Definitely. Too many options. Too much noise about what success should look like according to others. You get overwhelmed, can't find your own true north, and end up frozen doing nothing at all.
Okay, so let's say you gain some clarity on your direction. Your authentic why starts to emerge. What actually drives the consistent action needed to achieve things? The research has talked about passion, responsibility, and curiosity.
Right, and they drew some important distinctions. Passion is great. It's often fantastic for getting started, wonderful for hobbies. But as the only driver for professional consistency, it can be unreliable.
Because it waxes and wanes with your mood.
Exactly. Some days you feel it, some days you don't. For consistent professional output, you need something steadier. That's where responsibility comes in. This is the professional's driver. It's about showing up and doing the work day in, day out. Whether you feel passionate in that moment or not, it's your commitment to clients, to your team, to your own standards, to your brand.
That's what builds momentum.
It really does. And then there's curiosity. This is often the spark for innovation, for breakthroughs, for those leaps of genius. It's that inner drive to explore, to tinker, to ask what if or why not, without necessarily needing a guaranteed outcome.
Now, the researchers also had a word of caution about passion, didn't they? About trying to force a passion into a career if there's just no market for it where you are.
Yes, that was a pretty blunt point. If your deep passion happens to be in an area with very little current market demand or value, trying to build a significant career solely on that can be incredibly difficult. It might be a very long, potentially frustrating road, maybe even a waste of time in a purely commercial sense, unless you have massive resources to basically create or shift the market yourself, which takes ages.
So maybe a more pragmatic approach sometimes is to let curiosity lead you to find where there is a real market need, build skills and value there, achieve some success, and maybe find that the passion and enjoyment actually follow from becoming competent and seeing results.
The interesting thought. Passion doesn't always have to be the starting point. Sometimes it's an outcome of mastery and positive feedback. So when should you just follow passion for its own sake?
Maybe when your basic needs are securely met. When you have the financial freedom and stability to pursue something purely for the love of it, without the pressure of it needing to pay the bills immediately.
Makes sense. And that responsibility driver, the professional one, it runs on discipline.
Absolutely. Discipline is the engine. It's doing the thing even when you really, really don't feel like it. Not letting your mood dictate your actions.
Just showing up, even if it's imperfectly.
Yes. That whole something is better than nothing principle. Keep the habit going, maintain the momentum. Don't let yourself slide back completely.
And the research has emphasized how much your environment helps with maintaining that discipline.
Oh, hugely. Surrounding yourself with people who have similar goals, who support you, maybe even hold you accountable gently, it makes a massive difference compared to being isolated or surrounded by negativity.
Which realistically might mean consciously choosing to spend less time with people who consistently drag you down or just don't get what you're trying to achieve. That can be hard socially.
It can be really hard, but creating that supportive ecosystem is just so critical for staying disciplined over the long haul.
Okay, shifting slightly but related, building your personal brand. What did the researchers really mean by that? It's such a buzzword.
Yeah, it is. But basically, it's the collection of ideas, feelings, perceptions that people associate with you. It's about consciously shaping how you show up and how you're perceived, becoming known for something specific, hopefully becoming a trusted entity.
And why is that so important now?
Well, because it flips the script on opportunity. Instead of always being the one chasing leads, making cold calls, outbound, a strong personal brand starts to attract opportunities and clients to you, inbound. It helps you stand out in a noisy world.
And the absolute key ingredient, according to the researchers.
Authenticity has to be. Trying to project a brand that isn't genuinely you is super risky. Trust takes forever to build and can vanish in an instant if people sense you're being fake. Your brand needs to be rooted in who you actually are.
Right. Okay, so you work on the mindset, find the drive, build discipline, craft an authentic brand, achieve some success. How do you keep it going? The research has used a really powerful metaphor for this.
Success is rent, not ownership.
And the rent is due every single month.
Yeah, exactly. You don't just arrive at success, plant a flag, and coast. You have to keep putting in the work, paying that rent through continued effort, learning, adapting, just to stay where you are, let alone keep growing. No entitlement allowed.
So avoid that gambler's mentality, always looking for the one big score that sets you up for life.
Exactly. Embrace the farmer mentality again. Slow, steady, consistent cultivation, patience, persistence. And learning from others is huge here, too.
Mentors, yeah.
People who've been there. Find people who've successfully done what you're trying to do. Don't feel like you have to reinvent the wheel entirely. The research has suggested it's often smart to copy what demonstrably works first, really master the fundamentals, then layer your own unique innovation on top.
That makes sense. There was also a quick point in the researchers about navigating generational differences, which ties back into understanding others.
Right. Just acknowledging that challenges can pop up simply because different generations, maybe millennials managing Gen Z or vice versa, have different formative experiences, which can lead to different priorities or communication styles.
Like maybe Gen Z places a higher value on certain types of recognition or flexibility compared to just salary, perhaps more than previous generations did at that career stage.
Potentially, yeah. And the point wasn't that one generation is right and the other wrong, just that they're different. The key for anyone leading or collaborating across generations is awareness and empathy. Understanding those different motivators lets you connect and lead more effectively.
Back to putting yourself in their shoes again, even if their shoes are from a different era.
Always comes back to that, doesn't it? And finally, the thread weaving through absolutely everything we've discussed, priorities and sacrifice.
In a world with infinite possibilities, you just cannot do everything.
It's not just about time management anymore, it's priority management. What is truly the most important thing for you to focus on right now to move towards your biggest goals?
And accepting that focusing laser-like on those top priorities inevitably means other things, even good things, desirable things, will have to be sacrificed or deferred. That's the deal.
You have to consciously choose to do the things you cannot afford not to do for your major goals, which often means saying no to things you might merely want to do.
And the ultimate priority check, the final filter the research has suggested applying,
is aligning that pursuit of success with your deepest core values and beliefs. Because success that requires you to compromise your integrity or act against what you fundamentally believe is right, is that really success at all?
that is definitely a question to wrestle with.
Wow. Okay, we have covered a ton of ground here. Mindset, mental input, sales as empathy, building confidence through action, handling failure, and finding your authentic why, the different drivers like responsibility and curiosity, personal branding, the success as rent idea, generational awareness, and the necessity of priorities and sacrifice.
It's a lot, but it paints a really coherent picture, doesn't it? It suggests success is far less about external circumstances you can't control, and far more about your internal game, your mindset, your choices, your discipline, your understanding of others, your intentionality day after day. It's built, not just found.
It really is cultivated. Okay, so here's a final thought, something for you to maybe mull over until our next deep dive. If success is rent and it's due continuously, what specific rent payment are you making today to secure your place or move forward tomorrow?
And tied to that, thinking about that crucial mental input. Who are the main voices, the key influences currently shaping your personal definition of what success even means right now? Is it truly your definition, or might you have borrowed it from somewhere else?
Definitely some things to chew on there. All right, until our next deep dive,